what we're going to be doing is rigging this character. It's from a television commercial that I've been working on. You can see if I play this, she's got facial controls, she blinks, she moves her legs, um, her head movement, full movement, things like that. So let's take a look at the model itself. Alright, so you can see here we have the model, minus any sort of textures. And I'm going to go ahead in one of my views. You can see here under panels, perspective, perspective, they're both essentially in perspective mode. With this one, and the model's fairly unfinished, so forgive the difference in quality of line, right? Like you can see here, there's still some issues with some of the geometry, and her hair isn't fully completed yet, um, but overall you'd want to have a uniform layer of edges or geometry going across. See how there's a lot more here than there are down in the pants area? The area is nicely averaged out or spaced. I have an entire video also on how I modeled this. It's a pretty standard modeling methodology for doing faces and things like that that can be used for realistic or characters. It's actually highlighted in a couple books. One's called Stop Staring, which is a really good book. But anyway, I'm going to do edit, delete all by type history to clean out my model. I want to make sure that all of these things are freeze transformed. So if you're using your own model, um, it's generally a good idea to have all of those things. All right, I'm going to make sure to name my model Alina because that's her name. All right, so in this view, I'm just going to hold down and right click my mouse on the word Maya and go down to front view. You can also go to panels, orthographic, go to front. And then what I want to do is start creating joints. So I'm going to change modeling to rigging. And I'm going to go to skeleton and I'm going to click on create joints. And I'm going to click right in her, somewhere in her pelvis area, and I'm going to hit enter. Now if I hit 4 on my keyboard, you can see there's my joint. It's pretty small. I want to make sure that I'm in a uniform scale size. So I'm going to go ahead and click my little Dunkin' Donuts guy down here. And you can see here that it defaults the timeline slider. What we're looking for is settings. And I'm going to change this to meter, and I'm going to hit save. And that's more along the lines of what game, how to set it up for games. So now if I recreate that joint, let's go ahead and make sure that um, let's see if I could find that joint. Looks like it disappeared because it was too small. So let's go ahead and do that again. Create skeleton, create joints. I'm going to click here. Let's see, maybe that's off. No, it's on. Go ahead and hit enter here. There's joint 2. There's joint 1. It seems to have been parented to her, which is what we don't want. Alright, so I'm going to delete this one. So here's joint 1. I'm going to go ahead and click 1 for the radius. Let's do 20 so you can see it. Seems like it's showing up here. Let's see, show. Oh, under show here, our joints are off. Okay, there we go. So that's why you couldn't see it. So we're going to go with 1. And let's just kind of work our way up. 5 is good. Now what I want is the joint to be directly on that center line of my character. So I'm going to just nudge it over like this. And then in my right view, so I'm going to hold spacebar down, hold down the word Maya and go to right view. I'm just going to push it somewhere where I find the center of my character. And I'm going to name this root. Okay. Now back to my front view. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Control and D as in duck and duplicate this and move it down to the hip. And looks like there is a issue with the mesh in here, which we'll address later. For now, what's most important is this these joints. Okay, so duplicate 1 here. And then I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to lay out the rest of the joints. Alright, so let's take a look at what I did here. Now, in my perspective view, if I want to see my joints through the mesh, I turn on X-ray joints, which is located here. You can see they pop up there. Um, what I created was I duplicated that hip joint that I created here, and it's just I have it just kind of sitting off to the side. I duplicated it one more down for the knee. Let's turn off our, this will stop us from selecting the mesh so that we can just select our joints. We created one for the ankle, the foot, and so forth. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to name this, because this is the left, her left side of her body, L underscore hip, L underscore knee. And for the knee, I want to push this just forward a little bit. And I'll show you why, if why that's that why we do that later when we actually go to skin this. And then here's L underscore ankle. And then for this, I want to push these joints into a specific area. So this is the heel, midfoot, and toe here. So for this, I'm going to go to my right view, move these back a little bit, and I still want them in the center of the foot. So you can see here under L underscore heel, and then L underscore M underscore foot, and then L underscore toe. Okay, so the toe one, I want it to be out here in front of the toes. And I'm just gonna take all three of these and shift them down so they're almost at the base of the foot, like this. And we're not really going to be rigging the toes. You can eventually, if you'd like to build more of an advanced rig. I'm looking for something more that when the foot pivots, it'll pivot off of that. Okay, let's go ahead and connect these. So starting from the toe, I want to work my way up the chain. So I'm going to hold shift and select the next joint and press P as in Paul. And then the next one. And then all the way up to the hip. Now to save us a little bit of time of having to do that again, actually let's go ahead and make sure this is straight. Yeah, it looks like it's straight. I'm going to go ahead and select this hip, excuse me, and then I'm going to go to skeleton, and then under mirror joints, I'm going to click the option box here, and I'm going to change this from search for L underscore, and I want to replace it with R underscore. And what it's going to do is, you see where it says L underscore hip here? It's going to change that name to R underscore, and then whatever the name is as I hit apply or I go to mirror it. So let's go ahead and hit mirror. It seems like it mirrored it in place. Well, the reason for that is we need to adjust one more parameter. So let's go back to skeleton mirror joints. And here you can see you can mirror across its center axis. If we do YZ, it'll mirror it across that Y axis. You can see it also went ahead and changed our hip and all this other stuff for our ankle. So let's take a look at why we added that slight bend in the knee, right? So here, let's go to our side view here. You could see our ankles are slightly back here. And we could even move it back a little further now that I'm looking at it. We want it almost in the center where an ankle would be. And then the knee. So why do we have a slight bend in our character's knee? And the reason for that is we're going to be using something called an IK handle. And we'll be creating an IK-FK switch later, which, not to overcomplicate things, but it allows us two different types of kinematic and non-kinematic animation. So I'm going to go up to skeleton here, and then I'm going to go to create IK handle, and I'm going to click this option here. And what we're looking for under IK handle is we want to make sure that we have solver enabled, snap enabled. If we just hit reset tool, it's usually our general settings. And then what we can do is with that selected, you'll see I have this target reticle. I can click the hip and then the ankle. I'm going to hit G, or you can go back up here again and do skeleton, and go down to create IK handle tool and click on the next one on the other side. So now these are our IK legs. So if I click the center here and I move it down, well, we actually need something to route our IK handles to. Let me go ahead and show you that. So let's go ahead and see show. Let's see if we have NURBS curves on. Everything else looks like it's pretty good. We'll just do show all. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create something called a foot controller, and that's going to control all of the parameters we don't necessarily see in our legs. So like for example, say we wanted special animation attributes. So I'm going to go up to the top here and go to create NURBS primitive, and I'm going to go to circle. You can see I have one here. I'm going to hit R and then just kind of squish this down so that it's almost the size of her right foot. So something like this. And then the IK handle, I'm going to go ahead and turn off show polygons for a second. Inside of here, you could see it created this little wire brush. Let's see if we could scale that up a little bit so you guys can see that a little bit more. Doesn't seem like it's updating. But you could see here as I select it. What I'm going to do is select this and hold shift and select that NURB circle. And actually, what we want to do is I'm kind of breaking my own rule here. Notice that these are not cleaned out. So we're going to go to modify, freeze transformation, select this, then this, and hit P to parent. And now you'll notice if I select that and I push down, you can see that now we have an area where our foot locks. See that? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Well, what we'll do is just for testing purposes, and actually if I move this around now, you'll notice it moves the leg with it, but it's not perfectly centered. So I'm going to Control Z a couple times so that it's no longer linked, and I'm going to go to my front view and just sort of move this. And for now on, what I'm going to do is work strictly inside of this view, where I'm just going to hold spacebar, right click, and go to perspective and just kind of switch between them. All right, so I'm going to hit W, hit Control D as in duck, and then move this over just so it lines up there. So now I've got these two skates underneath my character's legs. All right. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pause, or actually I'm going to stop this video here, and then we'll take a look at creating a secondary joint chain for the legs.